The people who get angry when you say no are usually the ones who are benefiting from your inability to say it. They're not mad because you're unkind. They're mad because you're no longer being dishonest. Welcome to the Kindness Extremist podcast. I'm your host, Shola Richards, aka Brother Teresa. I've spoken to tens of thousands of people all over the world about the importance of kindness. And I am obsessed with how we can bring more kindness into our daily lives and restore balance to a deeply unbalanced world. Every episode, I'll give you 3 practical strategies to create a kinder world, and I'll do it in 30 minutes or less. No fluff, just valuable, actionable content that you can implement in your life immediately after listening to help you actively create a kinder world. There's no time to waste. Let's dive in. What's up, my friend? Welcome back to episode 45 of the Kindness Extremist podcast. I'm your host, Shola Richards, aka Brother Teresa. And today we're going to talk about something that might sound like a contradiction: how rejection can be one of the kindest gifts you give to another human being. Now, before you think that I lost my mind or that Brother Teresa has gone to the dark side, hear me out. I'm not about being cruel or being dismissive. I'm talking about how a clear and honest no can actually be more compassionate than a reluctant, resentful, or even a dishonest yes. Back in episode 25, I talked about boundaries and how they protect your priorities. Today, we're flipping the script. This isn't about protecting yourself. It's about how your no serves others. Because here's what nobody wants to admit. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to reject them clearly, quickly, and compassionately. Let me tell you about the moment where this clicked for me. Many years ago, as a favor, I was asked to speak at a small event for free for less than 20 people. The person who asked me was a very kind and lovely person who I genuinely like. But here's the thing. I knew that I couldn't do it justice. My schedule was insane. I was dealing with some heavy personal stuff. My heart just wasn't into it. And I knew that under the circumstances, I would not be able to deliver my best work. But instead of being honest, I said yes. You know why? Because I didn't want to hurt her feelings. I wanted to be nice. Y'all, it was a disaster. I was a sleep-deprived mess because my youngest daughter wasn't sleeping through the night yet. I showed up late because of a work conflict that I actually knew about when I said yes, and I threw together a last-minute talk that was mediocre at best. I was physically there, but mentally checked out because I was overwhelmed with everything else that was going on in my life. After the talk, my friend pulled me aside and said something that still haunts me. Shola, I wish you just would have said no. I would have understood. Instead, it felt like this event wasn't even important enough for you to show up fully. That hurt way more than if you just had been honest with me from the start. Dang. That's when I realized that a dishonest yes is way more unkind than an honest no. I'm sure I'm not the only one who can relate to this. How many times have you been strung along by someone who just couldn't tell you no? That job that kept you hanging for months before rejecting you? The romantic interest who kept you on the hook because they didn't want to hurt your feelings? The friend who said yes to plans but clearly didn't want to be there? Those dishonest yeses? They're not kind. They're cowardly. And they cause way more damage than a clear, respectful no ever could. Today, I'm going to give you 3 powerful strategies for making rejection an act of kindness, not cruelty. We're going to explore why your no creates clarity that allows people to find their real yes, why false hope is way more cruel than an honest rejection, and how saying no to the wrong things makes room for the right things for everyone involved. So, if you're ready to learn how to reject people with love, respect, and genuine kindness, it's time to dive in. For the first strategy, we need to address the elephant in the room. Most of us have been trained that saying yes is kind and saying no is mean. It's so weird because that's not just wrong, it's actually backwards. When you give someone a clear no, you're giving them the gift of clarity. You're freeing them to find someone who can give them an enthusiastic yes. You're saving them from wasting their time, their energy, and hope on something that was never going to work. Let me share a story that completely changed how I think about this. I was asked by a young professional, let's call her Ashley, who applied for a position at a company where I had really close connections. She asked if I'd use my connections to personally recommend her for the role. Here's the thing though. Ashley was very talented, but she was not ready for that particular position. She had some, let's just say, professionalism challenges that she needed to address. Particularly, she was constantly late for work and she received many complaints from customers. And I knew that neither of which would fly with the people doing the hiring at this company. The nice thing to do would have been to write her a lukewarm recommendation and let the company figure it out on their own. But I knew that wasn't actually kind. So I told her the truth by saying that I would not write the recommendation for her, and we had a very real conversation about our opportunities for improvement. She was hurt at first, let's keep it real. I could see it in her face, but sharing this important feedback with her was an act of kindness that ended up helping her way more than a yes would have. Case in point, she reached out to me months later to say that she found another job and that she used my honest feedback as the wake-up call she needed to refine her professionalism and become a more sought-after candidate. Who knows how long it would have taken her to come to that realization on her own if I chose the easier path of giving her a half-hearted yes. That is the gift of clarity, and it's so powerful. When you say no honestly, you're not slamming a door, you're redirecting someone to a door that actually is meant for them. So here is the first kindness strategy of the episode. Here are the 3 steps to make your no a gift of clarity. Step 1, acknowledge and appreciate. Start by sincerely acknowledging what they're asking and why it matters. I'm honest that you thought of me for this. Or, I can see how this is important to you. This shows respect for their request and their courage in asking. Step 2, give the clear no with context. Don't bury the no in the word salad. Be direct, include context that helps them understand. Begin by saying, I need to say no to this because. And this part is critical. Don't say, maybe later, or let me think about it, when you already know the answer. Again, that's not kind, that's cowardly. And step 3, redirect when possible. If you can, point them toward a better option. I can't do this, but here's what might work better. Or, I'm not the right person for this, but I know who might be. Or, this isn't a fit, but have you considered? Here's an example that happened to me last year. A startup founder asked me to join his advisory board. The old me would have said yes and then resented every minute of it. Instead, I said, I'm genuinely honored that you want me on your advisory board. That tells me that you're serious about building something where kindness is a part of it. However, I have to say no because advisory positions frustrate me because I can't execute on the ideas that I want to share. But I know some folks who are exceptional advisors and actually love that role. Can I make an introduction? The founder was very grateful. Why? Because my clear no saved him from having a disengaged, frustrated advisor. It freed him to find someone else who would be genuinely excited about the role. But here's what's crucial. You have to mean it. A kind no isn't softening the blow with false promises or empty compliments. It's about being honest while being human. Think about every time someone strung you along with maybe when they really meant no. Think about every job that kept you waiting when they already decided on their candidate. Think about every relationship where someone just couldn't say the words, hey, this isn't working. That waiting, that false hope, that uncertainty, that's what's actually cruel. Your clear no ends that cruelty. It gives people the information they need to make their next move. It respects their time and their agency. Most importantly, it treats them like adults who can handle the truth. For the second strategy, we need to talk about something a little uncomfortable. The damage we do when we say yes, but mean no. Every reluctant yes plants a seed of resentment. Every time you agree to something that you don't want to do, you're not being kind, you're being dishonest. And that dishonesty poisons relationships from the inside out. I learned this the hard way with a colleague in a previous job who became known in our office as the yes man, air quotes. This dude, let's call him David, never said no to anyone. On the surface, he seemed like he was the nicest guy in the world. Always helpful, always available, always willing. But here's what was actually happening. David was dying inside. He was overwhelmed, exhausted, and secretly furious at everyone who asked him for anything. He'd say yes to your face and then complain about you behind your back. He'd agree to help and then do a half-assed job because he was stretched too thin. He'd show up physically but radiate resentment that everyone could feel. One day, David exploded. In the middle of a team meeting, someone asked him to take on one more small task and he lost it. Years of suppressed resentment came pouring out. He called people selfish, accused them of taking advantage of him, and stormed out. Here's the wildest part about this. Nobody forced this dude to say yes. People asked because he always said yes. They assumed he was happy to help because he never indicated otherwise. His inability to say no didn't make him kind. Again, it made him dishonest, and it set him up for that inevitable explosion. So here is the second kindness strategy of the episode, the preemptive no. This strategy is about saying no before resentment has a chance to build. Here's how it works. First, the gut check rule. When someone asks you to do something, before you answer, do a quick gut check. Does this request make you feel energized or drained, excited or trapped? If your immediate internal reaction is negative, that's your signal that no might be your best answer. Second, the 24-hour rule. This is for bigger requests. Implement a 24-hour rule. For example, that sounds interesting. Let me check my commitments and I'll get back to you tomorrow. For the fellow people pleasers who are listening to this right now, this gives you time to move past the immediate pressure to please and make a decision based on reality, not your guilt. And third, the full chest yes test. Yeah, that's a mouthful. If it's not a yes with your full chest, then it should be a no. Not, I guess I could do that. Not, if I have to. Not, fine, whatever. It's if you can't say yes with genuine enthusiasm, say no with genuine respect. Let me give you a recent example. A friend of mine asked me to help him move. Now, I've helped this friend multiple times over the years, but this time I was exhausted. I'd just come off a brutal travel schedule. My surgically repaired knee was acting up, and I needed a weekend to recover. The old me would have said yes and then been miserable and resentful the entire time. So instead, I just said, hey, brother, I need to be honest with you. I am completely depleted right now. If I show up to help you move, I'm going to be useless at best and probably injure myself at worst. I need to say no, but I'd be happy to send over some pizza for anyone who does help. Would that be useful for you? You know what he said? Dude, thanks for being real with me, man. I'd rather you take care of yourself than hurt yourself trying to help me. And hell yeah, I'll take you up on that pizza. Send it over. Our friendship got stronger because I was honest, not weaker because I said no. If nothing else, remember this. When you say yes, but mean no, everyone feels it. Resentment leaks out in 1,000 tiny ways. Your energy is off, your enthusiasm is fake, your presence is hollow. People know when you don't want to be there and it makes everyone uncomfortable. But, this is a big but, when you say no, honestly, you're doing everyone a favor. You're preventing the resentment that poisons relationships. You're maintaining your integrity. You're modeling healthy boundaries that give others permission to do the same. The preemptive no isn't about being selfish. It's about being sustainable. It's about preserving your energy to show up fully for the things that you do say yes to. It's about maintaining relationships instead of destroying them with the poison of resentment. Hey, fellow kindness extremists, it's me, Shola. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, if you're mowing what I'm growing, if you're smelling what I'm stepping in. Okay, I'll stop. If you're enjoying what you're listening to so far, I would love it if you would take a moment to hit the subscribe button and leave a rating and a review. Those incredibly kind acts go so far in helping me to reach as many people as possible who will join the movement to actively create a kinder world. I appreciate you so much, my friend. Okay, let's get back to the episode. For the third strategy, we need to zoom out and see the bigger picture. Every time you say yes to something that you shouldn't do, you're actually stealing an opportunity from someone who should. This is the part that really messes with people's head because we've been taught that saying yes to everything makes us helpful. But what if your reluctant yes is actually blocking someone else's enthusiastic yes? What if your half-hearted participation is preventing someone else's wholehearted moment? Let me tell you about a revelation that I had in my daughter's elementary school over a decade ago at this point. They needed volunteers for their Halloween event, and like always, the same group of parents said yes to everything, including me. I signed up to run a booth even though I was swamped with work and really just did not want to be there. But then I watched this new parent, a mom who had just moved into town, trying to get involved into the school vibe and the school culture. She kept offering to help, but everything was already covered by the regulars who couldn't say no. She looked defeated. That's when I realized that my inability to say no wasn't just affecting me, it was blocking her opportunity to connect, contribute, and find her place in our school community. The next time I saw her at school pickup, I said, hey, actually, I overcommitted myself. Would you like to take over the booth that I signed up for? I'll introduce you to everyone and help you get set up. Her face lit up like Christmas morning. She didn't just run that booth, she revolutionized it. She had ideas and energy that I never would have brought to the table. She made connections with other parents. She found her place in the school community and had a blast. Meanwhile, I was freed up to catch up on some sleep. Talk about a win-win. That's the multiplication effect. When you say no to things that aren't meant for you, you create space for someone else's yes. So here's the third and final kindness strategy of the episode, the opportunity transfer. First, recognize your blocking patterns. What are you saying yes to out of habit, guilt, or ego rather than genuine calling? Are you holding on to roles, responsibilities, or positions that no longer serve you but could serve someone else? Second, identify the hungry. Who around you is hungry to contribute but hasn't found their opportunity? Who has the energy and ideas but no outlet? Who's been waiting on the sidelines for their chance? Third, make the graceful handoff. Don't just disappear and just ghost people. Facilitate the transition. I need to step back from this, but I think Sarah would be amazing at it. Can I introduce you? Or, I can't commit to this anymore, but I know someone else has been looking for exactly this opportunity. Also, a note of warning. This is not being a martyr or sacrificing yourself. This is about recognizing that when you're operating outside of your zone of genius, you're not just dimming your own light, you're blocking someone else's. Think about every committee you're on that you dread, every volunteer position that you hold grudgingly, every role that you're playing out of guilt rather than passion. Now, imagine someone who would be thrilled to have that opportunity, someone for whom that role would be a perfect fit. Your no isn't just taking something away, it's creating space for something better to emerge. I see this all the time with people who don't delegate at work. They complain about being overwhelmed, but they won't say no to any task. Meanwhile, their team members are bored, underutilized, and looking for opportunities to grow. The manager's inability to say no isn't helpful. It's harmful to everyone. When you say no to the wrong things, you make room for the right things, not just for you, but for everyone in your ecosystem. All right, my friend, let's bring this home. We've completely flipped the script on rejection today, and I hope your mind is open to the idea that saying no can be one of the kindest things that you do. Let's recap what we discovered. First, your no gives people the gift of clarity. Through the redirect method, you help people find their real yes instead of wasting time on something that was never going to work anyway. You acknowledge and appreciate the requests, give a clear no with context, and when possible, redirect them toward a better option. Remember Ashley from early in the episode? My no for that one opportunity led her to the perfect yes for her journey. That's the power of honest rejection. It doesn't close doors, it reveals the right ones. Second, your no prevents resentment before it starts. The preemptive no strategy protects relationships by maintaining honesty and integrity. Use the gut check rule, the 24-hour rule, and the yes with your full chest test to ensure that you're only saying yes when you really mean it. Every reluctant yes plants a seed of resentment that eventually poisons relationships, but an honest no preserves the authenticity that makes relationships thrive. Third, your no creates space for someone else's moment. The opportunity transfer recognizes that your half-hearted yes might be blocking someone else's wholehearted opportunity. When you step back from things that no longer serve you, you create space for someone who's been waiting for exactly that chance. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking at this point. But Shola, won't people hate me if I start saying no? Fam, hear me when I say this. The people who get angry when you say no are usually the ones who are benefiting from your inability to say it. They're not mad because you're unkind. They're mad because you're no longer being dishonest. How weird is that? The people who truly care about you, they want your authentic yes, not your resentful compliance. They want your genuine enthusiasm, not your begrudging participation. They want the real you, not the people-pleasing version that says yes to everything and shows up for nothing. But here's the part that makes this about kindness, not just boundaries. When you say no with respect, honesty, and grace, you're modeling something powerful. You're showing others that it's okay to honor their own limits. You're demonstrating that saying no doesn't make you a bad person. You're proving that rejection and respect can coexist. So here's your homework assignment for this week, and I really want you to take this one seriously. First, practice one kind rejection this week. Just one. Find something that you've been asked to do that you know in your gut that you should say no to. Then use one of the kindness strategies that you've learned today. 1, give them the gift of clarity with your honest no. 2, prevent future resentment by being truthful now. Or 3, create space for someone else's opportunity. But here's the key. Say no with the same energy that you want to receive. Be clear, but be compassionate. Be honest, but human. Be firm, but kind. And remember this, every no you say to the wrong thing is a yes to the right thing. Every rejection of what doesn't serve you is an acceptance of what does. And every boundary you set with love makes more love possible. The world doesn't need more people saying yes when they mean no. The world needs more people with the courage to be honest, the wisdom to know their limits, and the kindness to honor their boundaries with grace and respect. In summary, a kind no is infinitely more valuable than a cruel yes. A respectful rejection is infinitely more healing than false hope. An honest boundary is infinitely more loving than dishonest compliance. You're not being mean when you say no, you're being real. And in a world of fake yeses, your real no is a gift. This is your host, Shola Richards, aka Brother Teresa. You now know that kindness can't be weak because you just experienced the strength of the Kindness Extremist podcast. Until next time, my friend, the journey to a kinder world continues. Thank you for listening to the Kindness Extremist podcast. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. And I have one favor to ask. If you could kindly hit the subscribe button, leave a rating and a review, not only would that be incredibly kind, but by doing so, you're actively playing a role in growing this movement and ideally getting us one step closer to creating a kinder world. I hope to see you next week for another episode of the Kindness Extremist podcast. Bye for now.